It's your lucky day, Nuke told the shopkeeper. Said shopkeeper peered out from underneath a garou, his face covered in... well, let's just ignore what it was covered in. You want to buy a leaky garou? The shopkeep asked. Even better, I want to give your face a whole new kind of brown, Nuke said, whipping out a somewhat crushed choco bread loaf and boinging it down onto the counter. Oh, a sponge! Nice one, mate. No, you have to eat it. Mind if I use a little dip? Yes, I fucking mind. Come here, you dreg! Nuke grabbed the shopkeep and started forcing the brown bread into his mouth. It's delicious, huh? You like that? You can fit it all in, come on! Izumi peered around the door just to check, but quickly disappeared again. This sponge is alright, the shopkeep spluttered. Swallow! Nuke demanded. Izumi almost doubled back. Once the poor shopkeeper had complied, Nuke snapped his fingers. Now, my man! At this, Wadston shuffled into the shop with a lit candle and got as close to the shopkeep's face as the local aroma would allow. I see, the doctor said. See what? Is it working? Nuke asked. I fear not, my prince. No signs of increased bodily activity. The mechanisms of addiction have not engaged. Fug! Eat another one, you impenetrable lout! I like it when he shouts at me, the shopkeep grinned, grabbing another loaf and chomping away. A guard slid over from the other side of the farm shop. Master, couldn't help but notice these freaks are force-feeding you sponges. Everything under control. It's the best thing I've shoved in my mouth all day, mate. You ever tried working under the garous? The shopkeep said with a crummy grin. He wolfed a few more handfuls of brown bread, but Wadston was not able to report any signs of physiological or psychological dependency. Nuke stormed out and pointed at Izumi. I stuffed it down his throat, but it didn't turn him, he complained. Perhaps we could use more scientific language, Izumi suggested. Data concludes, you suck. Now that's ambiguous given the context. Damn biologicals. Obsessed with sticking shit in one end or the other, Rick said. Can we just get out of here? These tech hunters gonna hunt my rare ass for scrap any second. Still pretty ambiguous there, Rickard, Isaiah noted, but indeed they did get out of there. Test subject 1 in Black Scratch had not reacted to being choked half to death with brown bread, quite as Nuke had hoped. No, I don't know what specifically he was hoping for. When they left town, Gustafsson sent Ignacio back down to watch over the base, on account of the hiver's new wooden leg not faring all that well on the road. Keep your nose open. When I find a suitable replacement for your leg, you will detect it, Gustafsson said. Ignacio seemed to know what he was talking about, and plodded off back to the chocolate factory. The gang made it to Brink, where they all gathered around to watch a local farmer steadily chew on a loaf, their eyes transfixed on the slowing rise and fall of his bristly jaw, until finally the mouth opened and produced the words, "It's alright, I guess." No! Nuke shouted, head in his hands. Yes, as you might be able to tell, brown didn't have the same effect on people as green. It was more comparable to an orange, I'd say. In his frustration, Nuke went and robbed the local police station. I mean, isn't that the best way to relax? Not in this case, as he was spotted, and the group had to skip town at a sprint to escape the local samurai. They raced west into the desert night, losing their pursuers, but falling into a pirate ambush instead. Out of the frying pan and into a mug of slightly above room temperature tea. And by that I mean the pirates were dispatched quickly, and their bodies cleaned of all treasures, but for a single calling card, a malformed blob of mucky, brown speckled starch. A free sample. Gotta pull out all the stops when you're bringing a new product to market. After crossing the windy deserts around the Eye, the crew hit their next stop in the quest to give the world a taste for brown bread. It was a caravan outpost in the Grey Desert, flanking the road that ran alongside the high ridge between the Deadlands and the less Deadlands. Prince Tashino, allow me to try this time, Isaiah said just outside the gate. Be my guest. Remember to tell them it's full of nutrients, Nuke told him, handing over a bundle. You said that wasn't allowed, Els complained. but best ignore where that rabbit hole leads. Inside the wall of the compound, Isaiah entered the caravanner's bar with a confident stride, stepping cleanly over the corpse in the doorway.
"Friends, countrymen," he announced, "it's time for much merriment and pleasure, for the delights of Browntown descend upon us."
People were listening, but not necessarily in a good way.
"I have here in my blessed hands lumps of Okran's love, dollops of Narco's cunning, the most wonderful masticatory experience you'll have all day, all year. Behold."
Everyone beheld the clutch of knobbly brown, and then returned to beholding the fine details of the inside of their eyelids. Isaiah threw the produce down on the bar.
"So, are you ready to buy?"
he asked the barman. The barman, a dark-skinned Czech who looked like he'd had far more offensive things slapped down on his bar, clawed off a scrap of bread and raised it into his mouth, his eyes locked on Isaiah's the whole time. Those eyes suddenly widened, and then seemed to grow dewy.
"It's..."
he said, but there was no time for words. He eagerly swept the rest of the brown mound into his gaping maw and consumed it noisily. Then he looked Isaiah square in the eye again.
"Pale skin, where did you find such a blessing?" "Well,"
Isaiah said, puffing out his chest and turning to address the room,
"only from the Tashino Credit Management and Non-Consensual Private Healthcare Guilds in association with the Tashino Crustacean Corps Private Security Consortium and the Future Girl Industries Semi-Professional Association of Archaeological Grudge Settlers and Ancient Quasi-Amateur Baking Enthusiasts."
So this must be the TCMMPHGINTCCPSCFGISPAAGSAQABE I've heard so much about, the barman nodded. He happily paid for his pudding, and Isaiah reported the good news to the gang outside.
"I gave it a taste myself. It's actually incredibly delicious," he said.
"What? Let me try," Izumi said. "Wait, you didn't even try it," Nuke said. "No, I'm not stupid. This stuff could kill you for all I know." "Cool. That's quasi-amateur baking for you. But actually, I don't know. It's okay."
"Could it be that there is a difference in the reaction of each species?"
Wadston suggested. "Could be. I mean, Isaiah likes it. Disgusting fat man really, really likes it. But all the humans don't really care. Prince Gustafsson, will you try some?" Gustafsson shook his head.
"It is the wrong color. I refuse to digest it," he said.
Izumi offered Bobby and Claw a sample, and they both drew a thumbs up and a smiley face on their little chalkboards.
"It seems we have our answer. It's a Czech thing,"
Isaiah laughed. "Then we've got some money to make in your part of the world, big man," Nuke said.
"Ah yes, my part. Well, I had rather hoped to stay away from there, actually."
"What? Why?"
He need not explain,"
Wadston insisted. "Fine, but we gotta go check it out anyway. I mean, this whole brown thing's on the verge of being a bust. If we can at least get someone addicted, I'll let you all off the hook." A plan was drawn up for a marketing research march west towards the mighty Czech kingdom. They had to skirt the southern edge of the Deadlands, walking on the narrow ridge between the black fog on their right and the burning white-sanded space laser-baked desert to their left. Soon night fell and it was black in all directions, but the light of a nomad caravan led them to the main westward road. Nuke went over to have a word with this caravan and make a certain purchase from them. When he returned, he had his hands hidden behind his back. "Good news, guys," he said. "We're going the right way, roughly, according to those guys. And, much more importantly, I thought of a way to sell more chockies to the stockies." From behind him, he revealed a brown bone dog puppy. "This is Choco, our official product mascot."
"By Narco's justice, that's incredible!"
Isaiah exclaimed, rushing forward to take Choco in his arms. "Thought you might like her. You see, if there's anything a tough old Czech likes, it's cute dogs and a bit of chocolate," Nuke said. "Obviously, Charlie isn't allowed either, but the rest of your people should pay handsomely for it." "Wow, Nuke, you kinda did something clever there," Izumi commented. "Oh, so when I buy a crab you complain, but a dog's fine?" "Yes, that's exactly it. Wait, you didn't understand that?" Gustafsson leant in to get a close sniff at Choco.
"I'm not sure if I should associate,"
he said. Choco licked at his face.
"Oh, it has associated with me."
Anyway, with a new mascot riding on Isaiah's shoulder, they pressed on westward through the night. It was an exhausting journey, especially the part where they were attacked by beak things and subsequently had to carry the unconscious hivers along with them. The area southwest of the Deadlands was very far from civilization, with the United Cities Empire far to the east, the Holy Nation far to the north, and the Shek Kingdom not quite so far to the west. Yet still, somehow, in the middle of a wasteland plain, there was a lonely bar the crew could stumble into around dawn. Only problem was that a mob of hungry wastelanders had been waiting for just such a travelling party to arrive. Brandishing cleavers and broadswords, they approached Nuke and issued their ultimatum.
"Give us your food, or we'll eat your flesh." "Much more polite than those other cannibals,"
Isaiah noted. "So you guys are hungry, huh?" Nuke said. He opened Gary's pack and pulled out the product. "How about you chow down on some of this? Best food in the world and your first hit's free. Tell your friends." In this fashion, the brown market was expanded, and the cleavers cleaved nothing but pillowy loaves of teeth-rotting bread. Inside the bar they made a few more sales on the good word-of-mouth marketing, more than enough to cover beds for the night, or day as it was. They had particular interest from an old farmer named Lon, who Nuke hired to go work the chocolate fields and ramp up production for the potential Shek connection. While the crew rest up before the next leg of their journey, let's spare a thought for poor old Lon, shall we? Armed only with a blunt sword and a pair of cargo shorts, he was asked to travel all the way back to Nuke's farm alone. It was a near impossible journey, yet a hungry wastelander like him had nothing to lose. He set off east, planning to make the risky desert crossing beneath the space laser, for it was indeed the fastest route to Manksand Canyon. It was dawn, so there was no hope of the laser deactivating anytime soon. However, that wasn't the main danger in the region, it turns out. The laser's turf, the region known as Venge, was strewn with ruins and wreckage from ancient wars killed by the Eye in the Sky, or nearly killed. Behind Lon, a trio of headless skeletons crawled out from the rubble and started thumping towards him. Lon legged it, but these skeletons had been charging their batteries for a while. They caught up to him and struck at him with long metal poles, each hit spurring Lon to push ever harder to escape. They passed ruins both ancient and modern, across open plains dotted with cacti, and through narrow valleys watched over by semi-dormant iron spiders from the Second Empire. Eventually, the inevitable happened. A laser beam shot down and scorched the earth right where Lon was running. It burned his skin, and he just barely stumbled from the light before it was too late. He looked back, hoping the skeletons had been hit as well. They had, but these headless hunters seemed completely undaunted. Cursing the weakness of Okran and Narco alike, Lon's aching legs drove him onwards. He found himself running alongside the barely extant remains of an ancient road. It curved up a steep ridge, but unfortunately the skeletons had no trouble ascending it. Then there was sound from behind a large boulder. Lon prayed for a bandit attack, for at least it would get the attention of him. Nope. It was a dozen more headless bots charging out to join the chase. Was anyone so unlucky as Lon? Time would tell. He kept running, oh how he kept running, for a good hour or more at least. The skeletons were right on his tail, the tips of their metal prodders touching his back, their absent heads giving no room, or ram, for negotiation. Now missing though was the humming glow of the space laser. They had left Venge and entered the United Cities Empire. Incredibly, this random patch of distant, forgotten border was being patrolled by the samurai at that very moment. Lon screamed out for help, but the samurai just waved for Lon to lead the skeletons over to them. Too hot to move about in heavy armour, especially in the early afternoon sun. Once the two groups converged, the samurai did acquiesce to raise their weapons and try to stop the skeletons. They got most of them. Lon didn't stop for a second, sprinting on past the border and looking back to see that most of the skeletons had been embroiled in battle with the samurai. But not all. 5 were still right on him. Ah, how he yearned for the time when it was only 3, but he could be glad the time of 20 had passed. It's all relative, especially when you're running for your life. Lon's upturn in luck did continue. He was attacked by a few pirates who found themselves beset by the skeletons instead, allowing Lon to escape. Now only one skeleton was still on his tail. This was practically paradise. That one rampaging robot followed him all the way to Brink up on the mesa to his east, where at least he could use the string of cats Nuke had given him to grab some food, bandages and rest. Well done, Lon. Looks like you had quite the job interview there. But hey, you passed. While Lon rested in Brink that evening, Nuke and company were emerging from the lonely wasteland bar with a few armoured troops hired from within to bulk them up for their next stretch on the road. They used the last of the evening light to march west into the region known as Shem. Shem was a most incredible part of the world, all things considered. No space lasers, no acid rain, no slave camps, no bandit forts, not a skimmer in sight. A large lowland desert stretched out from the rocky heights the crew approached from, dotted with oases, a few plants, and herds of lumbering, peaceful herbivores. "This is shit," Nuke proclaimed. "No customers."
Man, this place really is the shit. Nostalgic. Once y'all are dead, might come back here,
Rick said. "Please don't say such mean things," Wadston said.
What, planning on living forever? I am. All the fishman juice in the world won't keep you going that long. Sucks. You gotta spend every day finding stuff to eat just to survive another day, and don't matter how many days in a row you do it, you still just die. Biological's got it bad. Guess we were hard on you back in the day, huh?
"What are you talking about, Rick?" Izumi asked, but Rick just shook his head.
Ain't nothing. Nothing at all. Come on, I detected signs of life out on the plains. Might be hungry for your weird dry sludge fuel.
There was a camp for herders out amongst the oases, and while they were willing to buy the odd bit of chocky, they didn't have anywhere for Nuke's small army to sleep. They pointed them south to an old rest stop on the side of a hill. "Soon you will all know peace," Gustafsson was saying to the herders' goats. "The Goat King will return, and you will have purpose. I promise." In the flickering torchlight, it almost seemed like the goats nodded in response. The crew moved south and spotted the campfires the herders had mentioned. They were lit, which was bad news, and indeed upon closer inspection the hillside was occupied by a gang of bandits resting beneath the mouldy green trunks of ancient trees. They must have seen Nuke and Guild approaching, but they didn't react. In the end, Nuke walked right up to their leader without any harassment at all. Even the bandits Shem did have kept to sociable working hours, it seemed. "Sorry man, but I was wondering if we could have a go on the beds," Nuke asked.
Nope. Rest time,
the leader said, not turning around. "What if I said that I'd take you to Browntown if you agree?" Nuke offered.
I'm not falling for that one again,
the leader said, suddenly standing and directing his men to attack. Whatever the story was there, it would be lost to history, and the guild troops slew the bandits and claimed themselves some accommodation for the night. They were at least halfway to the Shek Kingdom, but they'd also managed to offload about half of their choco stock already through sales, bribes, free samples, forced samples, and recreational use. Just as well, as Isaiah was obviously quite peeved about the idea of going to his homeland, for reasons he had agreed not to tell anyone. If only he knew what was waiting for him there, he would have rushed off to go there that very night.